I mean,
I'm resting in the call for you, Tim. That's my buddy Gordon Dabowski. That's my buddy Patrick McRae. That's my buddy Alan Gallant.
you need
Uh,
that hat, Jewel.
I'm going straight to hell. That is nice. That is a nice cover. Oh my god! So we're here to talk about the Doctor Who episode "Tomb of the Cybermen," which is a really interesting episode. The By the end, they sort of remind me of Alien a bit. They seem very indestructible at times. Am I off on that or what?
No, that's the point. They're very fearsome enemies.
Yeah, they were set up to be. I mean, the premise behind them is that they used to be human, and that they basically had transplants and replaced body parts with machinery. So they
Like Dick
are,
Cheney.
yeah, basically.
And there is some biological remnants, aren't there? I
Right,
mean,
yeah,
inside. Yeah. That's
yeah.
why
So
Unlike
that's
Dick
why they
Cheney.
can be put into stasis through freezing and all this sort of thing, I guess. But I thought that wall of frozen Cybermen was pretty impressive, actually, and the design of it was impressive too. The way that they put the holes in the side so that they could climb down and do all of that sort of thing. That was interesting.
Gordon, in the early aughts, did Randy Doctor Who fans ever ask, "Do you cyber?" and put a picture of a Cyberman up?
yeah, but I told you to stop sending me that stuff via Prodigy.
I never have. I never have.
Look, yeah, I really like the effects in this. The Cybermen, I like how they're down there and they're like frozen a bit down in the the cellar or whatever it is.
The
Cool.
cellar.
Yeah. I call it a cellar.
The
Yeah,
safest place is in the cellar.
they're the safest place. Uh, not in the. Usually, I think that's the thing too. There's sort of in every way. This feels like a horror episode of Doctor
It
Who.
is. I
It
mean,
is.
this is at this time, Doctor Who was moving. Its first 3 years you could consider it's like a kid show because it's like they go back in time and learn history, they move forward in time to learn about science, and you could go sideways in time, but they never really did that much. At
Smoke.
this Yeah, at this point, they are basically the best way to describe it is that it's like Lost in Space. It's a family adventure show. At this point, this is like the kickoff of their new season. It's a you know Troughton. It's second year of Troughton, and they're willing to take in more diverse horror elements. In fact, this is considered part of the monster era of the show. This is part of the base under siege era of the show. And this episode, this story, actually was cited for controversy because people thought it was too scary.
Good.
But much like when people talk about like episodes where Patrick and I are on with Jewel, they'll say, hey, too scary. No, guys, you guys need to crank it down. Crank it down. Especially
Search
Jewel
for
because
us.
he's hopped up on the pot rocks and the coke.
It's tragic. It really
Yeah.
is.
I gotta say, speaking of which, I had never seen a Patrick Troughton episode before,
What did you
and
think?
I had always heard, oh, he's the goofy clown, he's the goofy homeless clown kind of figure, and so my if there's one thing I can't stand, it's twee, and I just thought, oh God, I'm gonna have a a diabetic fit or something watching this. Wow,
Yeah,
he was
he's
incredible. And
Yeah.
this incredible voice, the stage voice comes out of him. And I thought, oh, this is a force to be reckoned with. I
yeah,
really liked him.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's true because he sets the blueprint for how the Doctor is played in future seasons because he looks like he acts like a goofball outside, but inside he's on top of things. He's kind of like the Patrick McRae of
Oh,
doctors.
I thank you. He didn't even really act that much like a goofball.
Mhm.
He really was on top of it. I thought he'd be a little more Columbo-esque in a weird English way, but he wasn't. He was, it's like, well, yeah, at least in this episode, yeah, there's the costume, but listen
Well,
to what I'm
if
saying.
you go to Tubi, if you see Power of the Daleks, which is his debut show, his debut episode, it's the animated reconstruction, but he's a lot more Columbo-ish in that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I was very impressed by him. So that's that. I just have to kick that off by saying, I just one episode, which this is basically one episode. I'm a huge Patrick Troughton fan.
Mm.
I like, yeah, he's very layered. I mean, there's a gruffness about him that measures in with this sort of wonder that he has as things are transpiring, as well as this sort of mentor figure that he's got going. That's all this stuff is working together for him in this.
What a great monologue he has about family.
Yeah.
But when he remembers his family and when he doesn't, and I thought that was great too.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
and very definitive of a Gallifreyan who's over 400 years old. I mean, he's just it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and when you consider that this was done on the same weekly budget that Dark Shadows was, that what they managed to
$75,000 to
do,
$90,000 a week or whatever the hell it
Yeah,
was,
and
something like that. Yeah.
and it's not making it better than Dark Shadows. It's just it's taking, and a lot of the imagery is taken. Jules said it was Alien, but it's also a lot from Mummy movies if you really think about it.
Yeah.
The Cybermen definitely have that vibe about them.
There was a moment of just pure theater towards the end that I really appreciated because the actors sold it. And it's when his assistant's continuing to have to shoot at the oh, there's one more down there.
Yeah.
And you get the idea that they're gonna start really piling up and coming forward. And it was very scary. It was the sort of thing that had me just shouting, "Close the hatch! Close the hatch!"
Yeah.
And then there's Istvan.
Yeah.
I mean, did you notice
What?
well, it's not the same actor, but it's basically the same character as King Johnny Romano's henchman, enforcer, Istvan.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean, that was very, very similar.
Yeah.
The silence, just all of that was, and the baggage, the baggage that goes with it. But when I was thinking about Dark Shadows parallels, that occurred to me.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one who, after Doctor Who disarms the door electrical field, if you will, the henchman opens the door. I like how they have I like how inside they have a testing facility for weapons and somebody gets shot in the back. And that was the way they ended part one, which I really enjoyed. I love how they ended part one. What did you guys think of the testing facility to test weapons?
It was the best you could do on $9,000 a week. We
Yeah.
have to spread it around. I thought
Yeah,
it was fine.
Yeah, and consider, Joel, that because they're using a lot of mummy movie and archaeology imagery, a lot of pyramids had traps. So it was a way to do a trap that you see it's a trap. You see it has consequences because it shoots guy in plaid shirt. But you also, it gives you a sense of, okay, you're moving, that there's something wrong here. This is not just another tomb.
Yep.
The team. I'm sorry, Joel. What?
No, I really liked the little bug things they had. That's sort of where I got the alien analogy from, because they're just there. They're motionless at first, and the doctor's like, "Don't." He tells the girl, "Do not touch that. Don't just let it alone."
Yeah. I was watching the featurettes on the DVD, the special edition, and those are taken from that in pyramids and Egyptian tombs. There would be like elaborate scarabs, scarab beetles. So those were kind of like that. And so, and I think too, this is a story that the story has a history, which is that it was originally wiped in the early 70s, and it was lost throughout the 80s. There's a copy that was found in Hong Kong in the 90s, because I remember I had like $20. I went to my local video store. They did not have the latest tapes of Dark Shadows. Yeah, they later went out of business. So yeah, bad business decision on you. I ended up going to Suncoast Video. I saw the tape and I'm like, wait, this is lost. And
Oh.
I bought it thinking, okay, what could it be? They had found it and rushed released it. And it was crappy, and it was a direct to film copy. They hadn't cleaned it up like they did for Tubi, but it was like, wow, I got to see something I wanted to see
Right.
since high school.
Yeah. It was
Bookmark
kind of
this moment
bizarre.
for later because I have a Suncoast story to tell you, but
It was
for
kind
later.
of bizarre when I looked through some of the other of the season 5 Troughton ones, and of course they animate them because there's no X and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
And it's weird because the animation isn't of the time period. It's more modern. It's like early 2000s animation or something. It's just it's a little off-putting, but I mean the dialogue is fine, and everything about that.
and it's weird too because there were some stories that they had animated that came out on DVD that had some live and some animated,
Yeah,
and they managed to animate them because it's the style so that it flows through. Those are not on Tubi.
yeah, yeah, yeah. These.
Mm.
I mean, it's nice that they have something, but I just thought that the style of the animation was completely
And it's
in opposition to the actual episodes. The time period and everything.
it's also hard too because like the animation started in 2016 with Power of the Daleks because they wanted to. It was the first 50th anniversary of Troughton. It's a lost story, so it came out and it's okay. It's a little bit closer to 60s style animation,
Right.
but it's but then they just kept. Then they released Shada, which is the Tom Baker lost story with animation, which it's if you were to buy it on like say Amazon, it's like one big 2.5 hour movie. I
Mhm.
bought it on the Blu-ray where it's chopped up into episodes, and it works much better there
Mm.
because it's like
Interesting.
it's the pacing it's much more. You get the sense that Adams set it up like a 6-chapter novella, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Um,
Structurally, it's supposed to peak at a certain point, and then you go on to the next episode, and it picks up, and then
right. I think the next one they did after that was the Macro Terror, which it's worth watching, even animated, because they did a little bit more with it because it's if you see clips of the original, it looks kind of cheap, but it's not the story you think it is. And then they just kept doing Troughton, Troughton, Troughton. They did um, last year they did Galaxy 4, which is a Hartnell, and the style doesn't look good. And then this year they're re-releasing the Celestial Toymaker, and it's nightmare fuel.
Mhm.
It's bad 3D. It's not good.
That's
Like
unfortunate.
I wouldn't even
Wait,
joke like to say let's make Jewel watch it to see him suffer. It's like no, nobody should have to see
this
this.
was Hartnell though, right?
No, no, this was Trout. No, this story
This
is
was
Troutman.
Troughton. Who's
Yeah.
Hartnell? Is he the first Doctor?
He's the
Yes.
first Doctor.
Okay.
William Hartnell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's some scientists on the expedition group who have evil intentions. Uh, what's with that? Is there they just that evil or what?
The Logicians. Is there a history to the Logicians characters prior to this?
No, they're kind of the you one you just need a villain. Two, there's no big Brotherhood of Logicians. It's not part of lore. It's basically why are they doing this? Because well, they're people who rely on logic and reason. In fact, the actor who plays Klieg, George Patel, he's the guy who plays the Egyptian bad guy in all the Hammer Mummy movies. So by casting him, you wouldn't know that.
But a
You
British
wouldn't know,
audience would.
but a
Yeah.
British audience would go, "Oh yeah, I know him. He's the
Bad
evil
guy.
bad guy."
Bad guy. And so they'd be foreshadowing just in the actor.
Yeah,
Now,
just like
which
someone.
of these? No,
Go ahead.
keep going.
I
No,
was
no, no.
about to say, just like if people watching this podcast, people would assume Alan is the voice of reason and sanity because he's
What?
so calm and nice demeanor. He says intelligent things.
You don't see the lower part of my body doing a tap dance during all of this, so
No,
this is.
Tap dance. Now, which one of these actors trained Benedict Cumberbatch to voice Doctor Strange?
It would be the fake American captain of the rocket ship.
Wow. Wow. What a lousy American. It is endearingly so.
Mhm.
You know, it's like their revenge for Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins.
Apparently, there were no Canadians available to do that role. So
Ed Bishop and Shane Rimmer were not yet over there.
Here's a question for you. Is there an actor who maybe was up for Doctor Who at this time period that didn't get the role that you wanted to get the role? Patrick Gordon Allen?
Back
It-
then? I don't know.
Back
I mean,
then,
lots of fine English actors. I don't know who was up for the part or who wasn't. I mean, it was not the most prestigious role
Yeah,
at the
and
time.
the other
Oh.
thing to realize, Joel, was that at this time the reason why they changed actors was that, well, two reasons. One is that Hartnell had arterial sclerosis, so he had problems remembering his lines. He was
Mm.
very difficult. He was hard to get along with. And one of the preceding producers did the two preceding producers didn't want him around, so they were trying to let him go, and they were trying to get, I don't think there was a casting call. Part of the reason why Patrick Troughton got this role is that Patrick Troughton is at this point he was the William Shallard of British television. He was, hey, it's that guy. He was a well-known character actor, first British actor to play Robin Hood in television.
Cool. He would have been a
And
good Robin Hood.
mhm. And so this was, and he also had a very interesting personal life. While he was married, while he was on Doctor Who, he was married, and he had one family with his wife and one family with his basically his girlfriend. He and his wife, his mother was Catholic, didn't want to get divorced, so he had the secret family and he was having an affair with another actress during this time.
I heard a story like that. True about Ray Bradbury and Yvonne Craig.
I would love to know that story.
that sounds all too vivid to imagine. It's like, wow.
And Patrick Troughton, when he liked to play golf, except when he missed a shot. And what he would do is he'd walk into the bushes and go wee wee in the bushes. I would love to see him playing golf against Dan Curtis. That would be very
Oh,
interesting.
forget about it.
Against Forrest Tucker.
This would be, yeah. Curtis
Yeah,
would be something like, okay, we know you got it. That doesn't mean you have to flaunt it for us. Put it back in your pants.
Good, you gave me a target. Hang on. 4.
In terms of actors of that time, Jewel,
yes.
I just popped a couple into my head, and they're diametrically opposed in a lot of ways, both age and type and everything else. But Leo McKern,
Oh God,
Rumpole the Bailey, and all of that sort of thing. He was in.
Yes.
He was in Help. He would be, I think, an interesting choice for Doctor Who, and probably in the later '60s, early '70s, Ian McShane. As a young man, if you've seen What's Up, Tiger Lily, you see this absurdist sort of character that he plays that would be sort of an interesting line to take, where he's very reactive, but at the same time he's sort of in control, that kind of thing. It's kind of fun, but yeah, that would be interesting at that time. Two actors that were actually active at that point in time. So.
Well, an actor who I think could have played Doctor Who from Dark Shadows, Lewis Edmonds, I think, talk about missing out, literally.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Joel, because there is it's an online forum called alternatehistory.org. And I'll throw the link in chat. And there's a timeline. There's an index with a timeline called the Yankee Doctor. And in this timeline, it is proposed that Rod Serling catches the premiere of Doctor Who in 1963, November 23rd. He says, that is a great show. We should do that in America. So he flies over and he's working with kind of the precursor to PBS, and they're trying to find the American version of Doctor Who. So they realize that they hear about an actor who he's a theatrical actor. He doesn't have a lot of he's not very well known.
Right.
And so they make a call, and he's on his way to fly out to LA to teach. And he picks up the phone, and he's asked to play the role. So yes, in this timeline, Jewel, Jonathan Frid is the first Doctor in the American version of Doctor Who.
It would have been great.
Yeah.
It would have been wonderful. Of course, then you go through the Dark Shadows actors. Thayer David
Oh, he
is
definitely
the ultimate. I mean,
Yeah.
really is.
And Thayer David had certainly widest range of experience as anybody at this point in time, both on the stage, both on television, both in films, since the late 50s, really. So yeah, he could have gone anyway. You imagine a Doctor Who that was like Count Patofi. I mean,
Yeah. Talk to the hand.
yeah.
Now, sort of given the sort of untraditional casting that's going on with Doctor Who. What are they on the 14th? Is this the 14th Doctor?
This would be the 15th.
15th Doctor. If they really, really, really wanted to go back home, so to speak, all the way, in terms of wistful sadness and knowledge and graciousness and irascibility, Stephen Fry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, okay, here's your white man. Good. Are you happy?
Well, Stephen Fry
Yeah.
actually was in Doctor Who. He was in
in.
He
He
didn't play the Doctor, but he was.
Well, so was Ron Atkinson in that what is it, comic relief thing?
He played a character in an actual Doctor Who story.
Okay.
Was Patrick McGowan ever considered?
Nope.
He was too big.
I think so. Yeah.
He was way too big and too much of an action star, and he liked using. He didn't talk with his fists; he talked with the balls of his hand, because that's the weird way that he punched. But he'd be the only Doctor who refused to use a sonic screwdriver.
Because he would insist on artistic control, because by that time he had been doing things where he had artistic control. Around this time, or just slightly after it, of course, he was doing The Prisoner, and that was more or less his baby. So.
Yeah, for sure. What's you guys' favorite scene in part 1?
Well, I can't do that. These guys can probably, but it kind of all melds together for me.
To me, it's all one big episode.
Yeah, Joel. No, you don't get. No, it's all one story. You don't get to pick scenes out of episode 1, episode 2.
But Joel, what's your favorite scene in episode 1?
One of my favorite scenes in episode 1 is where, after they go in, the Doctor's saying, "Still be careful," and they're given the very. Even after the electrical field is gone, they're giving that vibe that this is a horror episode. And it's real from a psychological standpoint. I love the psychology of going in even after the electrical field is down, and they open and they're all going in. And that's my favorite scene, because that and the hypnotize, where they're getting hypnotized, I think is really, really cool. Because you're not expecting anybody to get shot by the end of the episode either. And somebody does. So
there's stakes. There's stakes to this.
Mm-hmm.
It lets you know. I love episodes that let you know, hey, don't fall asleep, because we got something in store for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the first episode has some great development of factionalization too. I mean, obviously you got to set up the tension and the drama and the conflict there, so you get this building revelation of the obsession, that certain faction has, as opposed to the other one where they're going, oh my God, and the other faction is going, yes. And there's that difference between curiosity and interest, and then just like the acquisition of power over here, and that's where the conflict starts to develop. So that's happening there. It's starting to happen there, for sure.
Yeah. And in episode 2, it's after the fact that the guy gets shot that they're realizing, hey, this is a testing facility, a target facility of where they're testing weapons. I think that right there, it lets the audience know, like, if you're not familiar with Doctor Who, like, I'm not familiar with Doctor Who the way I'm nowhere near what Gordon and Patrick are. So to let me know as an audience member, hey, you're dealing with a very superior race here.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that aspect of it in part 2 because it lets you know, hey, yeah, this shit's heavy. You know, you need to pay attention. I like them going how they went down because by the time they go down, you realize that there's people on the other side of this that aren't goody good. There's some evil intentions. So it's like, okay, and the doctor, I think the doctor sniffs it out. He tells the girl, "You stay up here. We'll go down."
Well, and
It's
she had a job.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's really, I like that aspect because your hero should be very spidey sense, if you will, and I like that aspect in this episode.
I liked the companions a lot in this too.
Yeah,
They were very winning.
yeah. Gordon, sorry for this.
Yeah, I think too. Episode 2 is kind of where we start to see things come together because that's the one where they actually go down. Because keep
Yeah,
in mind, the one thing about um, titles in classic Doctor Who is that there's a spoiler built in. So, like, if you see something called Power of the Daleks, you shouldn't be surprised to see a Dalek.
Right.
yeah,
Tomb of the Cybermen,
Here come the
yeah, you
Cybermen.
know they're
Two, and you're gonna have Cybermen.
right. But the whole point isn't about, okay, they open up and the Cybermen rise from the dead. It's okay. The conflict is there is a weapon. There are weapons down there. We know that
yeah,
there are a powerful race, and they have appeared in the show before, so we know Cybermen you don't mess with. You've got archaeologists who are just curious, and then you've got the guy paying for it who has ulterior motives, and it's clear she has ulterior motives. It's clear that Klieg and Kaftan want more with the Cybermen because of the way they're behaving. Because he's the one who's like, they pay no attention to like the actual interesting archaeology stuff. They just want to get down there.
Mhm.
yeah. They're like the Wayland Yutani.
And the Wayland Flowers and Madam.
That's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. First thought
Um,
that came to my mind.
we got to talk about Borg in this because I really hadn't seen a Cyberman anything since I was in high school, and I had a teacher, some real Anglophile, show us one of the Cyberman things, and I just cannot believe that the writers for Next Generation were not fans of the Cybermen because so many things that they say are just maybe one word off
Right.
from frequent Borg cant.
Well, knowing Maury Hurley, he probably was watching like Doctor Who on LATV one night, and it's like, oh, okay, there's our big bad, but we can't call them Cybermen, but they're Cyborgmen. Borg, okay, we get it.
Yeah, yeah. It's and I think culturally at that point it was distant enough in enough ways that it sort of slides under the door of homage.
Yeah. At that point, because by the time you get the Borg around what 1990,
1989.
89. Okay.
Yeah, it
So
was late season 2.
at that point, we're in our pause of Doctor Who. We've gone into the right at that point actually.
Yeah,
Gone into the pause of Doctor Who. So
it's a good idea. Somebody's got to use it.
yeah, absolutely. There's a relentlessness. There is a programming that says assimilate or destroy if it will not be assimilated. All of those sorts of canonical things.
I did think of Gloria Gaynor a lot in this when they would say repeatedly, "We will survive." I did.
Yeah,
What year did the Borg come on Next Generation again?
I believe it was 89. It was the
RoboCop.
Q episode. who, or that's funny, she doesn't look Q-ish or something like that.
Yeah. RoboCop came out in 1987. I do think there's some RoboCop inspiration too.
Yeah, but something to keep in mind, because we have to deal with actual history. This episode was still lost at the time. The only Cyberman thing would have been Revenge of the Cybermen from 1975. So we
Right.
can't. We can say like, okay, yeah, they got the idea from that, but we can't say they got the idea from this episode.
No, they didn't get the idea from this, but it's clear that Cyberman culture, at least I think, was
Sure.
on the minds of the Star Trek writers.
I'm gonna leave I'm gonna send you guys a very special link of RoboCop. I think you guys will enjoy.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Dude.
This isn't from that password protected folder that your wife doesn't know about, does it?
Of course it is. Of course it is. Of course it is. It's the folder I said Gordon all the time. Anyway,
I prefer the password protected folder that the wife has that Jewel doesn't know about.
I know that Julie's been sending that to somebody. Anyway, no. Guys, sorry, Alan, were you going to say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Overall episode, I really enjoyed this episode. The terror is there. I love how they were frozen at first too when they were down in that capsule. Great episode. Really fun. Is there anything you guys want to add before we go?
Yes.
I love the because it has those elements of horror, and I love the spareness of the scenographic stuff, the interior of the tomb and the flat lines and this and that, and then every once in a while you got something that was really visually interesting, like that cryo wall where they all pop out of once the appropriate levers have been pulled or pushed or whatever. But there's a great deal of the scenes, and it's also very theatrical too. There's a lot of dialogue that's going on in order for things to sort of be revealed or discussed or whatever before the next action sequence takes place. So all of that and that part of it, the dialogic, it reminds me a lot of Dark Shadows. There is a lot of that sort of build up that happens before you get into these sort of action sequences that we came to know and love after, particularly after we went to 1795 and then 1968. But so that was interesting to me. But the spareness of most of the sets with detailed stuff as a reveal of certain things, certain technologies, certain things happening, that I thought was sort of a minor genius on the part of the producers and the scenographers and everything else. It is different than Dark Shadows in terms of the fact that Dark Shadows went pretty Baroque with their sets and detailed, extremely detailed, because they had, Cy Tomashoff doing things.
And they didn't have to build that many. They left them
they
standing or
they
just
repurposed a lot of stuff, but there was an incredible amount of detail and substance to the sets for what for that time and for that budget. Incredible.
Yeah.
So, but it also wasn't science fiction, so it didn't, and in the 60s, science fiction had clean lines and that sort of thing was expected of it. So I think that Doctor Who was following that trend for those purposes, not necessarily because of their budget. It was, that was working out. So, but I thought that the sets definitely contributed a huge amount to the mood and even foreshadowing and revelatory stuff for this particular story arc. It's pretty good. So.
I have something. So we talked about Suncoast earlier.
Oh,
and I worked at a Suncoast in graduate school off and on. And we had a game that we liked to play. and it could only be played when you had the right combination of employees. When you had a female manager and a male, clerk at the register, and it would be, on weekday afternoons when a hapless businessman would wander into the store on his lunch hour and go over, and he was clearly very interested in the Playboy section, and we knew. And he would really be, he'd take his time and, be looking at other things and then just casually pass. Oh, it just happens to be there. And so eventually he would get a tape and he would, start to work his way up to the register. This only worked because I would be somewhere else in the store and she would be I would be at the register and she would be somewhere else in the store. And so he would feel safe. And so he would start to work his way up to the register. We did this a number of times. And she would go, "Hey, Patrick, could you, inventory the Little Rascals tapes or whatever?" "Oh, yeah, sure." And so we would switch places, and you would see him veer off so that he would not have to deal with her as his checkup, because he was too embarrassed. And we'd give it about 10 minutes, an excruciating 10 minutes. And then we would switch places. When he was far enough away from the register, we would switch places. And eventually he would glance over and see that it was safe and start to come up. And she would have some other reason for me to go elsewhere in the store. We kept that going sometimes like 90 minutes. This poor guy missing meetings and all sorts, no cell phone at the time. That was called the Playboy. That was called the Playboy Shuffle.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, see, when I was a teenager, the Playboy Shuffle had a totally different meaning.
Oh,
well, there's another thing. So often we would be given what was called trend to give out with the videotapes or something. They buy this, I don't know, Lilo and Stitch thing or what. It wasn't Lilo and Stitch, but whatever. We give them a little squeaky toy or whatnot. Well, there was a golf tool that none of us knew existed because we didn't play golf. And so it just showed up for no reason whatsoever. And it was a wash rag with a carabiner on it and the Playboy logo. And we were supposed to give this to people. Apparently it's used in golf or something to clean off your balls.
Yeah, you clip it onto your golf bag. You clip it onto the golf bag and you use it.
We didn't know that.
Yeah.
Playing golf, and we refused as a store because we didn't understand it. There is no way we were going to give someone a Playboy videotape and say, "Oh, yeah, here, knock yourself out." Or what? Good God, what were they thinking?
So right, a towel or a rag, right?
Yeah. Jesus God.
Yeah. More than vaguely inappropriate for the particular type of.
And what I loved, though, is that a chain of Playboy executives had really, I would love to believe in their own weird way, they were so innocent. It didn't occur to them.
Right. Yes. And the folder passed between 15 people on its way up to the top floor.
And nobody caught this.
Yeah.
No one caught this.
Okay.
Right next to the Dune popcorn bucket.
Yes.
Is there anything else you guys want to add about this episode? Nothing.
Was this originally in black and white, Gordon? Was it?
Yes, it was originally in black and white.
Yeah, the version I saw was black and white.
Yeah, it was in black and white. First of all, guys, thank you. Tomorrow night we're doing a movie, right, Gordon or Patrick? I mean,
yes. And Alan, I don't know if you like horror movies. This is a modern one, and this is really good. It's called Talk to Me.
Talk to Me. Got it.
And it's very scary. It's not a waste of time. It is probably near Hereditary level. It's not quite as mythic as Hereditary, but it's sort of on that level of class in its own way, but it still is just yeah. He articulately said.
Awesome.
All right.
Check it out.
Yeah, tomorrow night, 10:30. Talk to Me. There links to Alan Gallant's YouTube channel, Collins Port After Dark. Link to Gordon Demowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Link to Patrick Gray's Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound is going to be in the description box. Gentlemen, you have a pleasant evening. Take care.
Peace, love, dub.
In the chat,